But this builds into the law that it's not required to report it. But if you do report it to a peace officer within 24 hours of discovery that it was lost or stolen, you are immune from all civil liability if someone uses it in a crime. Why is that ridiculous, Richard?
One, because
We are the Arms Attorneys. Today we are talking about new gun bills we have never seen before. They say there's nothing new under the sun. There is always something new under the sun when the legislature is in session. So before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button. And I will say, the most wonderful time of the year in Texas is quickly followed by the most terrifying time of the year, because no man, woman, or child is safe when the legislature is in session.
that's true. And I'll say, if you're watching this, you're on the inside loop. We spent a tremendous amount of time gathering what has been filed so far.
He's being generous. Richard is a data monster
Okay.
and spent a lot of time. I am just the lollygag go along on this, but I'm very grateful for it.
Emily has hot takes on this stuff
hot takes.
that you pull your weight around here, all right? Don't undermine yourself too much. But all right, so the legislature is in session in Texas. This stuff is relevant to folks, even if you're not inside the state, because today we're talking about bills that have never been filed before. And so these are, to our eyes, I went through a ton. I went through 82 bills yesterday. There's things in here that we haven't seen before, and this is kind of our process, just so you know how we work. And maybe at some point I'd like to make our legislative tracker available to folks, because I think that would be fun for folks.
That would be fun.
But
leave us a comment. If you're a Texan and you want to see our legislative tracker, leave us a comment. We'll see.
The problem with it is there's a ton of data on it, and I don't know how people will interpret it.
Yeah.
Because what we do, all right, we get the bill, we get the author, we look at their party. We actually track whether or not they're a chairman of a committee. We found that that's a accurate measure of if something has legs or not. The other thing that we track is, has this thing been previously filed? And if so, how far along did it make it through the legislative process? That's a pretty good tell. A lot of bills don't get passed on their first go through. It does take maybe multiple sessions, maybe a whole lot of sessions until this thing gets done right. But bills that had legs, almost made it across the finish line last session, hey, guess what? We need to watch those things pretty closely. But for our conversation today, these bills are different because we haven't seen them before.
Yes. And now that makes them, I guess, slightly less dangerous or hopeful than bills that have been filed multiple sessions. However, I think the exception, and this is not the data-driven exception, this is just my guts having watched the legislative session here for the last 12 years of my life, is that if it is a bill that is new but seems so innocuous that it might sneak through on the first session before people know what's going on.
Yeah, because
if it doesn't seem like a big deal.
Well, right, because the whole shields up, right? We need to look out for this thing. We saw this filed last session. Well, yeah, sometimes these sneaky ones, and maybe these things showed up in previous, decades long ago sessions. I'm telling you, these bills were not filed last session.
Well, I've got one on this list that I think is one of those sneaky sneaks that's interesting. So, okay.
All right, let's go through a couple ones just to talk about, and we're going to talk about pro-gun bills and things that hurt gun rights, the right to self-defense. Those are the kind of things that we keep track of. And just go through it?
Sure.
Okay. All right, the first one, HB 214 by Guillen. So this relates to the prosecution of criminal offenses of a firearm, ammunition for smuggling and terrorism. I'll say this is, neutral on this.
Sure.
We had why this is different. This relates specifically to ammunition. We passed a very large terrorism statute last session related to gun smuggling, and ammunition got left off. So I guess they're just trying to fix that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not bothered by this. Normally my thought is, unless the law passed is enshrining freedom, I don't love more law on the books. However, we do have a largely open southern border still in the end of 2024 here. It has been largely open for a long time. Lord knows who's coming across. I'm not opposed to harsher punishments on people who are
engaged in smuggling and terrorism.
Engaged in smuggling and terrorism.
And part of our reasoning behind that bill, they have those things so narrowly defined. If we just left this open, we'd probably be more worried about it.
Okay, so here we've got HB 286. This is by Morales and just Morales, huh? Christina Morales. We are against this bill. This is relating to the study by the Department of Public Safety on stolen firearms. So we're just going to pour a bunch of money into a government body to say, look at how stolen firearms contribute to crime. And but my concern is, what other lists are we creating? How is it going to give the DPS license to hold on to people's stolen firearms because they're tracking and logging and studying?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
So yeah, this would fund a department in the DPS to go back and study things back into the 80s to see, hey, these guns that are used in crimes, or guns that were reported stolen, how did these end up at crime scenes? Really, this is taxpayer-funded lobbying. It's the gun grabbers using the federal government's purse to get all the data points that they want to push their narrative. This is upstream from criminalizing carrying in a vehicle, criminalizing keeping a gun in your car, criminalizing not reporting a lost or stolen gun. So we have to take these things, look into the future, look into our crystal ball and see how's this stuff going to be used. And that's
I hadn't even considered that. That is a really good point.
Yeah, next one is HB 528 by Goodwin. This one, I don't think we have.
We're neutral. I can't believe I'm neutral on a Goodwin bill.
Yeah, it's interesting.
She is not good for guns.
Yeah, she's probably filed a dozen red flag laws.
Also, she really dislikes me in particular every time I've testified.
Yeah. So this relates to bullying in schools, providing certain information to parents to help prevent kids from hurting themselves. It does involve firearms, so that's why we're looking at it, but I don't see the harm here yet. This is, though, why we track, even though these things are neutral. It's like, hey, why are you tracking this thing? It's because they have the opportunity to be expanded in the committee. Their purposes changed significantly. So even a bill that we don't necessarily were lukewarm on, we have to watch it very closely to see how it evolves.
Right. So here we've got HB 639. This is another Goodwin bill, and we're against it. Now we're cooking with gas. This is relating to the inclusion by a licensed firearm dealer of a firearm safety device or secure firearm storage device and certain information with the transfer of a firearm. So what this would do is, and this is, it's a nifty idea. It's another way to get FFL dealers in trouble, is it would mandate that FFL dealers, when they transfer a firearm to you, give you another safety packet of information
provided by the DPS,
which are already getting a ton of them, and that they send a lock with you, which, not opposed to that. Fine, you want to send a trigger lock?
They already do that.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten a gun from FFL that didn't come with a trigger lock. But like, if they don't do it, it's a crime.
Right. Well, and it's one of those things where, all right, this seems innocuous enough, but you start adding requirements on FFL. It's just a little thing here, a little pamphlet there, a little whatever here. You start building this stuff up and you criminalize it. Hey, guess what? You're making FFL's jobs are already difficult enough.
Already really hard.
We don't need to mess with these people anymore.
And the margins on guns are so slim. It's like at some point, people are going to be like, why would I be an FFL? Why am I going to get into this business for all this nonsense for like no profit?
Yeah. All right, we got a new one here that I love, HB 957. This is from Toth. We are for this bill. This relates to district or county attorneys participating as counsel in certain proceedings in federal courts. Basically, this is, hey, listen here, state prosecutors, you can't help with gun control on the federal level.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Does this pass?
No.
All right, what?
It doesn't. But I like it anyway.
I'm going to get it across the finish line.
All right. Okay, we've got HB 1040 by Turner. This is one we're against. This is relating to the prosecution of the offense of possessing or carrying certain weapons in certain facilities or residences providing services to individuals with an intellectual disability or a developmental disability. So this is just adding another facility to our no guns list in Texas Penal Code 46.03. We already have a laundry list of gun-free zones. We're slapping another one on here. And for what reason? They don't make us more safe.
No, and, this is one of those things, and I'll say, Second Amendment advocates, we get painted as kind of extremo for being like,
I might be
you want people to
extremo.
Bring guns into, intellectual disability facilities.
Yeah.
Why
not?
Well, and I think this is the way that you talk to these folks, when we are talking about something, let's see, when leftists talk about, hey, we want to prohibit something, they think if you're against it, you're mandating somebody engage in that behavior. Right. I don't know that this is happening. First off. Second off, we don't want to expand the list of prohibited places.
We don't want to expand the list of prohibited places. If you are carrying safely and the way that you ought to be carrying, we should not be taking your gun away from you.
Yes, absolutely. All right, the next one we have is HB 1138 by Gomez. We're against this. This relates to the authority of a municipality or county to regulate or prohibit the carrying of firearm on the premises of certain libraries. So,
Why with the libraries?
I don't know. They're a quiet place.
Texas is just obsessed. All of these counties are obsessed with not letting you carry into libraries, which is right now they have to let you carry.
Yes.
And they're just obsessed with it.
Well, I mean, they don't want you to be able to protect yourself against the unhoused individual exposing himself to the computer screen.
Right, exactly right. Why
So,
would you?
I mean, why would you want that, right? No, I
That was a
don't.
very diplomatic phrasing.
See, look, I used all their language. All right, look, but these guys, what makes this a little bit infuriating as well is when you don't have, statutory preemption. We want the laws uniform throughout the state. This is not included in. This wouldn't add it to the list of prohibited places. This would just say, hey, county or city, you can, regulate this if you want to. It gets their foot in the door, making the laws kind of non-uniform. And for that reason alone, get out of here.
Yeah. All right. So we've got HB 1234 by Guillen. We are for this. This one is great. So this is relating to certain procedures required for the denial of certain applications for license to carry a handgun. So here's the deal.
Throw some more certains in there.
Yeah. So in Texas, when you apply for your license to carry, that you can, and most people accidentally disclose more medical information than they really need to because the questionnaire is so broad, and it is so broad as to sweep up information that's not actually disqualifying. And so people disclose medical information, and then the DPS is like, uh-oh, give me all this documentation, and then we're going to send it to our little Star Chamber medical board, who's going to look at whatever you sent, immediately shred it into tiny little pieces and go, license denied, we don't care.
Yeah.
So we're not going to do that anymore.
No, and what this bill does is it creates this intermediate step. Hey, look, you submitted your application. It goes to this advisory board. If they're going to
Star Chamber.
Yeah, if they go to the Star Chamber and they deny it, guess what? Before you receive that denial of your license, you might have some relief here in challenging the denial with the advisory board.
Yes, which is what, I mean, first of all, the advisory board should just go right to hell and stay there.
Sure.
But if we're not going to go that far, this is great.
Yes. Well, and the kind of, all right, soapbox a little bit, but the medical advisory board is like, all right, find a licensed physician who specializes in mental health who will attest that you will never commit a crime with a firearm.
Right.
Like what?
Like what?
What?
And then you get them that documentation, and this is the worst part, and they go,
still deny you.
no.
Yeah, we don't feel like it. It's pretty ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
All right, the next one we have is Senate Bill 354 by Eckert. We're against this. This relates to the carrying of concealed handguns in the campuses of certain other locations associated with institutions of higher education. All right, this wins the craziest bill filed award, in my opinion.
Yeah, so
Craziest new bill. Obviously, there's other terrible stuff out there, but I've never seen this before.
they're going to let the student government vote about whether or not they can nullify state law with regard to campus carry. So I definitely trust the Tentifada kids to make the right decision here. My God.
Yeah, as a, I was in student government.
Of course you were.
It was a clown show.
I didn't even need you to tell me that. I knew you were. Oh my goodness.
But I can't imagine. I'm transporting myself back over a decade and remembering
it's more than a decade, dog.
Well, how long?
Nice
Is it
try.
15?
You've been practicing law a decade.
I transport myself back to undergrad days. Think about the hard-hitting conversations that took place in intellectual debates. It wasn't any of that.
And there's less now. Let's be honest.
We vote for more pizza. So all right, that wins the crazy award. All right, I think this is your sneaker.
This is my sneaker. So this is SB 357 by Eckhart and Gutierrez. We are against this bill. This is relating to the reporting of lost or stolen firearms. Okay, so in Texas, we have no mandatory reporting of lost and stolen firearms, as it should be, because I think it is weaponized against the gun owner, and it is never actually, there's no benefit to it. It's just a weapon to be used against someone who owned a gun and was victimized because it was lost or stolen. But this builds into the law that it's not required to report it. But if you do report it to a peace officer within 24 hours of discovery that it was lost or stolen, you are immune from all civil liability if someone uses it in a crime. Why is that ridiculous, Richard?
One, because there isn't liability in the first place.
There's no liability. That was an intervening or superseding criminal act, severing your civil liability. severing.
But this is this is a foot in the door bill.
Yes.
Or this is the camel's nose under the tent, as Edwin likes to say.
Okay. Never heard him say that. But I mean, this is wild to me. And it's not saying you can't be sued. That would be great if you say,
Sure.
okay, sure, you report it within 24 hours. When someone sues you, they have to pay your attorney's fees when you respond to it. Fine, I'll take that all day long.
Yeah.
But that's not what this is. And then I think we have downstream concerns.
Yeah, downstream, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but it's like, what does the author of this bill think it does?
Right. There is something nefarious going on. They are getting something out of this. And I want to know. I want to know what they think this is doing for them.
Well, and then this is what my mind jumps to. I don't think we have this in Texas, but there are some states that have, rules of construction with regard to their laws. When they impose a negative right like this, there's an implication that, hey, guess what? If you don't report it,
you're definitely liable.
Yeah,
automatically liable.
We don't have that necessarily in Texas, or if we do, it's really not. It's so exceedingly rare, but maybe that's what they're going for.
Well, or I wonder too, is this, you pass this now and the next session you criminalize not reporting it within 24
so
hours.
that's absolutely downstream concerns. So, but these are just proposals. These are chickens laying in they're still in the eggs.
Yes. I hope you are still with us. I know the Texans are still with us. We are so dedicated to the legislative session here in Texas. I don't think you're going to find anyone else on the internet or otherwise who is going to come at you with what's really happening in detail. And then as the session progresses, there's nothing you can do right now.
No.
As the session progresses, we're going to tell you how you can get involved and how you can help out and how you can be your own lobbyist for gun rights. So if you like this, share it with your Texan friends.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate that. And we hope you enjoy this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And question and comment for us below. Until next time, we're the Arms Attorneys.